So here's the thing. Hang on just 1 second. Hang on just 1 second. Yeah. So you can't host the show. You can't do it tonight. Are you sure? Because I gotta admit there is nowhere else I would rather not be. Oh, I'm live. Hey guys, it's great to be here. How was your weekend? Because mine was, you know what? It started okay. Doing a Saturday morning tailgate with my good friends Arthur Hurst and Tim Barnard over the weekend. That was fun. By the way, well, while we're on it, might as well. Saturday morning tailgate, man. Every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time to kick off your college football Saturday. Yeah, that was a blast, as it always is. And some college football action. SEC was crazy. My Vols put up a 50 burger on Kentucky. That made me very happy. We're back. Excited for Oklahoma this week. Some pretty good games in the NFL yesterday. My upset of the week didn't hit. Went 1 for 2 on If I Were a Bet Man. And oh yeah, that game last night too, the Steelers game. Yeah, that didn't go so well. And I must say I was forced to pay up a debt here in the Carver household to my little sister, who is a diehard Packers fan, as some of you out there know. And man, that hurt. 16-7. I'm feeling good. I'm like, okay, here we go. Maybe the offense is moving the ball. Boswell's hitting field goals. I'll react to the game in just a moment. We got a lot to discuss. Why Drake Maye is absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, a top 10 quarterback in the National Football League. Get into that. Also talk about Jordan Love's incredible performance against my Steelers. Get into that. Why the Eagles clearly do not need A.J. Brown in order to be a Super Bowl contender. You saw that yesterday. It felt like there was almost like an exhale, a sigh of relief type of situation in Philadelphia. Get into that. Dallas was slapped in the face with a harsh dose of reality, not just in terms of what they have to do to win, but there's a certain element of it's time to admit when you were wrong about things. And I'll get into that. Reaction to the rest of week 8 around the NFL. And of course, a prediction for tonight's matchup between the Washington Commanders and the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, we'll get to all of that. But we got to start with the obvious. But first, my most half-hearted but first of all time. Oh, man, that sucked. Pittsburgh Steelers lost 35-25 to the Green Bay Packers in the second half, where the Green Bay Packers scored a touchdown in the first drive, touchdown the second drive, touchdown the third drive, field goal, and their last drive, they were taking knees and bleeding out the clock at what was formerly called Heinz Field, and now it's called Acrisure Stadium. By the way, Acrisure Stadium, since it was redubbed that, the Pittsburgh Steelers 2 games over 500 at home. So it clearly has not been the best home field advantage, to say the very least. Now, we'll touch on some of the stuff later. But so much of what fueled my skepticism about this team as a diehard Steelers fan coming into the season really started and ended with the offense. It started with an offensive line that I didn't think was very good. By the way, last night did not exactly ease those concerns. Micah Parsons worked the Steelers offensive line. Rashawn Gary did as well. Green Bay had their way with the Packers O-line, which I did have major concerns about. I thought if the Steelers receivers aren't able to get immediate separation, Aaron Rodgers is in trouble because he's older, he's 41, he can't extend the play like he used to, and Micah Parsons is going to have a field day, and Micah Parsons was fantastic. Anytime you're getting interviewed by Melissa Stark after the game, you probably had a good game on Sunday Night Football. I also had concerns about the run game. With Jalen Warren, it's not about Jalen Warren. He is shifty, he is elusive in the open field. But can we create the holes for him? Well, not really. And I had major concerns about one Aaron Rodgers. Age 41, year 21, and 4 years removed off of his last, forget elite season, good season, 5 years removed from a playoff win. Gotta say, for a 41-year-old quarterback, behind a bad O-line, behind a limited receiving core, and hopefully Omar Khan does add a wide receiver too at the deadline, you look at his numbers last night, and really this season, it hasn't been bad. Now, again, the numbers to me are not indicative of how he's played in that. I think the numbers are slightly inflated because Aaron, to his credit, doesn't turn the ball over. But you see right there, 2 touchdowns, no picks. The second touchdown was kind of meaningless. The game was pretty much out of reach. 66% completion, 219 passing. Again, a lot of that came in garbage time. Pass rating of 101, but then the QBR, which is kind of the tell-all stat, it kind of judges. The QBR doesn't come out until hours after the game. Like, they look at the film, they see what went right, what went wrong, what should have went right and wrong. They take all those things, take into account your legs. 38 QBR for Aaron Rodgers, which isn't very good. But this season, would you know it, Aaron Rodgers has as many touchdowns as Dak Prescott. Now, do I think he's played even in the same galaxy as Dak? Yesterday notwithstanding, of course. Of course not. But all things considered, Aaron Rodgers has set up his end of the bargain. For a 41-year-old quarterback, for reasonable expectations. I mean, if you're a Steelers fan, you expected Aaron to light the world on fire, then you're probably really disappointed. But that was never going to happen. And Aaron, by the way, and we'll see how this plays out because the Steelers are hitting adversity, so I have my doubts about Aaron's leadership. But thus far, credit where it is due. He's been good. He's been good with the media. He's been good with teammates. Even the one time where he sort of went after a teammate, I defended him on the show, and Broderick Jones tackled him at the end of that Bengals game. He's been good. He's everything that the Steelers possibly could have hoped he'd be. But the identity of the Pittsburgh Steelers, it is defense. It is hit you in the mouth. The steel curtain, right? And even recently, some of those great defenses led by James Harrison and company. Oh, man, Troy Polamalu. Probably my favorite all-time Steeler. I love Troy Polamalu. And now these days with T.J. Watt. And the highest paid defense in the National Football League. 5th consecutive year, by the way. Can we show the Pittsburgh Steelers defensive numbers this year? Because they're not good. 22nd in points allowed. 30th in yards allowed. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Pittsburgh Steelers are dead last in opponent pass yards per game. The effing Cowboys are better than us in that regard. 18th in rush yards per game allowed. 24th in yards per play allowed. 24th in third down conversion allowed. Second to last, 31st in opponent points per game in the second half. And when would you look at the defense thus far? Since 2021, Steelers have been the highest paid defense in football. In that span, they have ranked 24th, 13th, 21st, 12th. This year, the Pittsburgh Steelers of Mike Tomlin are the 3rd worst defense in all of professional football. That is the standard that this coach has created. That is the inability. Don't we talk about the two things that we talk about with any coach, any competent coach in any professional league? Two things, at least this is how I define it. Is your side of the ball good? And do you make adjustments in the second half? Look no further than the head coach of my beloved Golden State Warriors, Steve Kerr. Hasn't a hallmark of the Warriors dynasty been, man, they come out like game busters in the second half. Those third quarter runs, Steph is in shots, shimmying, Draymond's knocking your stuff in the third row, and man, they just got to roll, and they get out in transition, and it's over. Especially back in the prime Warriors days. I mean, they had 50-point third quarters against the Clippers back in 2017. That was their hallmark. Why? Because Steve Kerr made adjustments in the second half. Would you believe the Pittsburgh Steelers have been outscored by 34 points in the second half this season? Yep. Outscored by 34 points in the second half. Need I remind you, like I said last night, and I don't want to take any credit away from Green Bay. I may give Jordan Love a lot of love, in particular, in a few minutes. Tucker Kraft, all those weapons, they were great last night. But in the 5 drives where the Packers were trying to put up points, the last drive they were taking these. The 5 drives where Green Bay was trying to score. Touchdown, 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 field goal, field goal. And we talked about this last week in that game against Cincinnati when the Steelers gave up, you guessed it, 30 points against the Bengals. In that, if the Steelers are not getting to the quarterback on a consistent basis, which, by the way, they blitzed all night long, still couldn't get to Jordan Love. If they're not getting to the quarterback, if they're not taking the football away, they're bad. The secondary is toast. You've got multiple old players on that defense. Guys like Jalen Ramsey, who got cooked again. Guys like Juan Thornhill and Darius Slay, who got slayed once again. Only young member of that defense is Joey Porter, and he can't stop getting penalized over the course of this season. Linebacking core, mid, can't really stop the run on a consistent basis. And some of this falls to the players. TJ Watt, what you doing, man? You're the second highest paid non-quarterback ever. Get to the freaking quarterback. Your contemporary in the AFC North, Myles Garrett, is getting to the quarterback 5 times yesterday. Not asking you to do that, but dang, what can we do something? Maybe he's getting up there in age. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. But the problem with this Steelers team, the whole idea of this Steelers season, we're going to be aggressive. Aaron Rodgers, we believe, is an upgrade over Russell Wilson. Thus far, clear upgrade over Russell Wilson. We're going to spin for Aaron Rodgers. We're going to spin for Jalen Ramsey. We're going to spin and trade for and spend for DK Metcalf. We're going to spend all this money on defense. We're going to add a few stars on offense, or at least previous stars in the case of Rodgers. And oh my gosh, if we can win 10 games the last 2 years with Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, Mitch Trubisky in 2023, and then with Justin Fields, Russell Wilson last year, shoot, Aaron Rodgers had what, 28 touchdown passes, something like that last year with the darn Jets? Hey, plug him into Pittsburgh. Here we go. As the hashtag in Pittsburgh goes on social media. And by all accounts, Aaron's held up his end of the bargain. I came into the season assuming, oh man, I'm going to be ripping Aaron week after week. Again, if you're going to get on him for not being able to extend plays, I'd say, hey, he's 41. I don't know what to tell you. He's not mobile anymore. That's Father Time. So Father Time's undefeated. Aaron can't get out of pressure the way he used to. And by the way, he didn't have to as much in Green Bay because they had a great offensive line. Why? Because Green Bay prioritizes the offensive line. And it goes to show you, when you have a coach who has an insane leash, which Mike Tomlin has had, and we know Pittsburgh, as the famous stat goes, 3 coaches since 1969, Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. And we hear about this non-losing season streak, which we haven't heard that in recent days. I think people are finally coming to my side of the table on this and that. Yeah, that's a pretty meaningless stat, especially when your side of the ball defense is awful. Again, spent the most money in the NFL on defense. And you're the 3rd worst in the league. You are this year worse than the Dallas Cowboys in terms of opponent pass yards per game. The Cowboys. And we're going to be talking about the Cowboys defense later. Trust you me. We'll be talking about Dallas. By all accounts, Aaron, he'll make the occasional play. You saw it early to Roman Wilson, roll out to his right, off balance. It was like, whoa, there's vintage Aaron Rodgers. He'll do that. He did it a few times in the Bengals game. He'll do that once or twice a game. But you know what's happened with the Steelers defense that I've noticed? And I don't know, just because of the moniker of Pittsburgh, remember the Steel Curtain and some of those defenses in the 90s and the 2 Super Bowls in the 2000s. Maybe it's, my buddy Tim talks about it, and it mostly applies in college football, but logo bias is like, we look at a logo and we just think about the greats, right? Maybe that will apply in the analysis. I hope not. I hope people actually watch the games and not just look at the logo as it relates to the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, because that's been their culture. That's been their identity for most of their history. But when we judge quarterbacks' performances, remember in week 3, Caleb Williams had a rough game yesterday. Caleb Williams torched the Cowboys defense. And there was one camp like, oh, Caleb's figured out. And there's another camp like, let's see. That was the Cowboys defense. Let's see how Caleb performs moving forward. And even for me last week, I thought Aaron was awesome. Thought he had his best game as a Steeler against the Bengals. But I said on the show, it is also Cincinnati's defense. Like, we got to take that into account. I mean, they gave up 39 to the Jets yesterday. Cincinnati's awful. Has been awful. We're going to have to include the Pittsburgh Steelers in that discussion. Where it's, oh yeah, in the future, Daniel Jones and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Justin Herbert and the guys that Jared Goff and the quarterbacks the Steelers are going to play in the future. Like, oh yeah, they played well, but keep in mind, they also played the Steelers defense, and that's nothing to exactly write home about. Is the fact that you look at the Steelers' 4 wins this year, now you look at it and you're like, not great. You barely survived the Jets, gave up 30 points to them. Barely. If Chris Boswell doesn't save your bacon at the end, you lose that one. You lose to Seattle, a good team. You beat New England. Oh, look at that. Yeah, New England gave you 5 turnovers. You had no business in that game. They turned the ball over 5 times, twice at the goal line, and you still needed a game-winning touchdown to win the game against the Patriots. Week 4, you seen the Vikings? Almost lost that game, by the way, in the second half because of Tomlin's conservative coaching, not going for it on 4th down and punting it back to Minnesota. And then week 5, you seen Dylan Gabriel, seen the Browns? Not very impressive. We are entering the heart of the most difficult part of Pittsburgh's schedule. Indianapolis next week. That could get ugly quick because the Colts have always owned us. But now with Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor doing what they're doing, yikes. Then you go to LA to take on the Chargers. Weirdly, I kind of like our chances in that game, but still. Then going forward, you still got the Ravens twice with Lamar Jackson back, presumably. You still got to play the Detroit Lions, and you still got to play the Buffalo Bills. And Cleveland with that defense is not easy. Especially if Shedeur Sanders is potentially in the lineup as opposed to Dylan Gabriel. Is that my preseason prediction of 8-9, first losing season in the Tomlin era? Looks like it might be coming to pass. And hopefully, if this season continues to go south, and the Steelers have already played the easy part of their schedule. They're done with the easy games. That's over. I mean, you got a Monday night game against Miami later in the year. Miami's bad and cold weather. You'll win that. Outside of that, no easy games the rest of the year for Pittsburgh. Not even Cleveland. That's a division game. If this keeps going south, I'm begging the Rooney family and Omar Khan, that ain't your guy. It's 2025 and he's coaching like it's 2005. Defense first. Hey, offensive line, take it or leave it. I mean, it doesn't really matter to develop a line to protect a 41-year-old quarterback, which, by the way, why do you have a 41-year-old quarterback in there to begin with? Nothing against Aaron. Aaron has not been our issue. But never forget, this is an organization. This is a coach. It's not an organization. It's a coach. Organizations enabled him, but the coach, who in 2019, this to me is the turning point in recent Steelers history. 2019. Big Ben's coming off. I think Ben might have thrown for 5,000 yards the year before. I forget. He had a big season in 2018, even if the Steelers missed the playoffs. Steelers start 0-2. Big Ben has a seasoning elbow injury. And so at that point, the Steelers could have said, okay, lost season. You're going to start Mason Rudolph the rest of the year, have the year play out, and that's going to be that. Have a losing season, we'll go get a quarterback. But nope. Mike Tomlin said, not on my watch. We got it. The one thing that gives me any sort of legitimacy as a half-decent coach in the league is that non-losing season streak. So we are going to trade our first-round pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick, who was a good player, but not worth a first-rounder. That first-round pick came from a draft that featured the likes of Burrow, Tua, Herbert, Hurts, Love. Feels like you could have used one of those guys, doesn't it? Just an idea, quarterback, one of the better quarterback drafts you've seen in recent years. Could have used one of those guys, but, this outdated defensive culture that, by the way, isn't even a defensive culture anymore. The 30th ranked defensive football. And by the way, let's just add this to the stat. Mike Tomlin, when his defense gives up 30 points per game, put up that stat. He falls to 7-44 in his career, 1-11 since Big Ben retired. And since the 2017 playoff loss to Jacksonville, 2017 to now is the stretch the Steelers have not won a single playoff game, 1-21. Speaking of winning playoff games, I believe we bring out this old graphic that I've used in months past. Can we show this one? Teams that have won a playoff game more recently than the Steelers, because it's a lot. Chiefs have won 17, Eagles 10, Niners 9, Patriots 7, Rams 7, Bills 7, Bucks 6, the Bengals in your own division 5. Jaguars, Saints, Texans, Packers, Ravens, Titans, 3. Commanders, Cowboys, Falcons, Vikings, Lions, 2. The Browns, by the way, it came against you in your own building, have won a playoff game, as have the Giants, Chargers, Colts, and the Seattle Seahawks. That's where we're at. Miss me with the Tomlin's a good coach thing. He's not. Not in 2025. At this point, he's nothing more than a good walking cliche. He's a great interview. At halftime with Melissa Stark after the game, he's great. Fantastic. He'll have a future in the media, and I think he'll crush it. But he's not a coach in 2025. He's not. And you saw that last night once again. It's only the Steelers in what has turned out to potentially be the weakest division in football could put themselves in a position where they're 4-1. And after this coming week, they may be one game up on the division. Because the Baltimore Ravens won yesterday. The Ravens got a game against Miami on Thursday. I like Baltimore strongly in that spot. I don't like the Steelers at all at home against the Colts on Sunday. No one should. So by Sunday night at approximately, Sunday afternoon at approximately 4:30 Eastern Standard Time, the Steelers might go from 4-1 to 500 and a one-game lead in the division over a Ravens team that started 1-5 and didn't have Lamar Jackson for one of their wins. Some standard you got there, Tomlin. I'll tell you what, it's just, you're crushing out there, buddy. Crushing it. But anyways, Let's shift to the other team in Pennsylvania that's actually well run, that actually has, to his credit, a half-decent coach who believes in having an offensive line, who believes in depth at receiver, and believes that defense is important, but not everything. And that would be the Philadelphia Eagles, who won yesterday over the New York Giants 38-20. Listen, before I even get to the Philly aspect of it and the number of good things I saw from the Eagles offense, I don't want to sound mean when I say this, and I said this last week on the show. I forgot. I was referring to the Isaiah Rodgers pick six that got called back in the Thursday night game. Is that, and again, I swear to God, I don't want to sound mean when I say this, but it's to prove a point. You can tell when people don't watch football. Because I hear, and I'm sure it's inevitable. It is inevitable. We are going to hear about it tonight. It's always a bummer when Chiefs games come on because it's inevitable. That call went against the Chiefs opponent. Therefore, the sport is rigged. It happens with every dynasty. Again, it's absurd. The reason I say that is because yesterday, you can tell not a lot of people outside of Eagles and Giants fans watched the Eagles and Giants game because there were some atrocious calls that went against the Giants. First of all, there's a tush-push. Game 7-7, right? It's close early. It's like, okay, I liked my pick coming into the week. Giants plus 6.5 or 7.5. Here we go. It's 7-7. Eagles are in the red zone, 4th and 1, so of course they go tush-push. Jalen reaches for the first down. Ball clearly gets punched out. Brian Burns gets on top of it, but the referees rule it dead. They said his forward progress was stopped. Therefore, first down, keep the chains moving. When clearly Hurts was still moving forward, ball got punched out as he's still moving forward. It was an awful call, maybe a game-changing call. And then fourth quarter, it doesn't affect the outcome of the game. The Eagles were up 18 at this point, so it was probably over. But it's a 4th and long. Jackson Dart hits Darius Slayton on a go ball for a touchdown, and they call a pass interference on Darius Slayton. It was hand fighting at best. That should have been a no-call situation. The Giants, Dable was about to have an aneurysm on the sidelines. He was so angry. It was a terrible call. So the game was poorly officiated. It's almost as if either one of two things, or both. Football's hard to officiate, or the refs just aren't that good. Because my buddy Tim has said, because there's too much of the part-time aspect to officiating. But that's a different conversation for a different day. But just more evidence that, guys, the league is not rigged for the Chiefs. We did this with the Patriots. We did it with the Golden State Warriors. It's a dumb narrative that only comes from losing fan bases. It's that simple. And people who don't watch the games. Regardless, to Philadelphia's offense. Boy, last night, at least for me and for, I think, maybe for the Eagles front office, was pretty vindicating. There's that element. You ever worked with that person where it's like when they're in the room, they just suck the air out, and it's everyone's walking on eggshells, and you and your coworkers are there's like an eye contact, like don't say anything to piss them off, kind of that sort of thing. And then when they leave, it's all good and fun again. Everyone can deep breath and go about their business. That was the Eagles offense yesterday without A.J. Brown. And I've said this for about a month. They do not need him to be a Super Bowl contender. They don't. You say, well, it's the Giants, a divisional game, B, a team that we saw last week should have beaten the Denver Broncos in Denver, a team that never loses at home, and beat Philadelphia the week before that by 17 on a short week when Philadelphia was coming off of a loss. And also, again, divisional games, they're tight. And the Giants have a good offense, at least prior to the devastating Cam Scadaboo injury. Is that when there's no A.J. Brown, now there's like a clarity within the franchise. Okay, it's a heavy dose of Saquon Barkley. Get him involved. Offensive line, your job. We're going to get the ball to Devontae Smith. We're going to get the ball to Dallas Goedert, Dotson. We're going to spread the ball around. Jalen Hurts is going to say, you know what? I'm throwing to the open man. I'm not just going to force feed number 11 the football because he's out here posting cryptic Instagram posts. They're using me, but they're not actually using me. Bruh, you had 100 yards last week. Of course they used you. It's not enough. A.J. Brown told us after the Super Bowl, days after the Super Bowl, he finds his greatest satisfaction in the game of football by dominating another defensive back more than winning a championship. Honestly, if that was a private one-on-one conversation, if me and A.J. Brown were talking, wouldn't have a problem with that. Don't broadcast that to the public when you play a team sport. That's not where it's at. And by the way, even when he does dominate DBs, which he did last week against Minnesota, it's not enough. And Saquon Barkley, we can show you, went off in this game. Saquon Barkley, 14 carries, $150 rushing yards, a touchdown, rushing and a receiving touchdown, had 10 yards a carry. He had a 65-yard scamper on the second play from scrimmage, and he had two 20-plus yard runs. That's notable because he hadn't had a single one. I talked about that last week. Had not had a single 20-yard run prior to this game against the Giants. Feels like last year he did that every other game. Against the Rams, he did it multiple times a game. The Rams have nightmares from facing Saquon Barkley. And Jalen Hurts as well. Again, with all the drama in Philly, when the anonymous quote, remember the anonymous quote from a couple of weeks ago? An anonymous Eagles player was saying, man, this reminds me of the end of 2023, right? Where we collapsed. We lost 6 of our last 7 games. We lost in the playoffs to Tampa. It's starting to remind me of that inner turmoil. A.J. Brown's complaining for the ball. Saquon's not running it. Jalen Hurts has done this season. He has a 20-2 total touchdown to turnover ratio, 70% completion, 235 total yards per game, passer rating of 114, and a QBR of 67 on the season does Jalen Hurts have. A.J. Brown, and I'm going to give Patrick Brown credit for this. Shout out to Patrick Brown, my good friend here at the Grid Network. He made this point. I think it's a smart one. A.J. Brown is to the Philadelphia Eagles what Kevin Durant is to the Golden State Warriors. Now, the only difference is the Warriors won before KD got there. That wasn't the case in Philly. They don't need him in order to be an elite offense. The Giants have one of the best defensive lines in football. Brian Burns and Abdul Carter and Thibodeau and Dexter Long. They have some dogs up front to the New York Giants. Well, how do you minimize, or how do you neutralize, rather, a great pass rush? By running the football. Not just with Saquon Barkley, but with Tank Bigsby, who I said, when he was traded, I said at the time, I cannot believe the Jags moved on from this guy. Philadelphia's like, thank you very much. We'll swoop in, take him. We've still got A.J. Dillon as well. So we've got a deep bench in our running back room. Our offensive line is dominating the line of scrimmage. Jalen's being efficient with the football. Jalen's being accurate with the football. And Saquon Barkley talked about after the game the success the Philadelphia Eagles had running the football yesterday.
Yeah, felt great. O-line did a great job there. Did a great job getting me to the second level, and I was able to use my speed on that one. But it's important to start the game off fast, and doesn't get really any faster than that besides the play before. So I feel like that was a key to how successful we were this game, and something we could build on.
There's a certain clarity that came with that Philadelphia Eagles offense. And again, I'm not here to say that Kevin Patullo is this genius now. I still don't think he's a very good OC, just like I didn't think Kellen Moore was a good OC last year. But now there's now we can do what we want to do on offense. We're going to give the ball to Saquon. Jalen's going to work out a play action. We're going to throw some deep balls to Devontae Smith. We're going to get it to Dotson. We're going to get it to Dallas Goedert, who's our red zone extraordinaire. Great tight end. And we're going to play Philadelphia Eagles football the way that we feel it ought to be played. It's not that A.J. Brown does not make this offense better. He does, no question about it. But when there's the internal pressure from Jalen, and not just or towards Jalen, I guess, too. Better get me the football. I'm going to be mad. Even if you do give me the football, I'm going to say something else on social media. Not only that, but it's clear and obvious at this point. Brandon Graham, now back with the Eagles, let the cat out of the bag last year. Yeah, Jalen and A.J. aren't that close. Jalen and A.J. used to be friends, not that tight anymore. Knowing Howie Roseman and the deal maker that he is, arguably the best GM in all of football, he's calling around the league. Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, they're calling to see what they can get for A.J. Brown. Because somebody will take him, and they should. He's a great player. He's one of the 5 best receivers in the sport. But if you had to rank the Eagles' offensive players, just offensive players, in terms of importance, I'd put Jalen number 1, because the fact of the matter is I've seen Jalen not have a good line and no running game with Saquon all season long. He's been spectacular. Jalen number 1, Saquon number 2, the 2 tackles at 3 and 4 with Mailata and Lane Johnson. And it's a toss-up between Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown. Dallas Goedert is their elite red zone guy, trustable on third down. He's reliable. Low maintenance. So is Devontae Smith. So is Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts is the ultimate low-maintenance guy. It says a lot about a teammate when everything is going well. The pass game's working. It has been working pretty much all season long, aside from a few games here and there against Tampa Bay and against the Denver Broncos. Pass game's working all season long. We're back, 6-2. We're finally, Saquon's got it going, and we're going into a bye. So we feel great about that. I got 2 tough games, brutal games coming out of the bye against the Packers and the Lions. Cannot wait for both of those. Some of the top contenders in the NFC. Better give me the ball, Jalen. And I think last night, or yesterday afternoon, I should say, provided a level of clarity to that organization, like similar to Kevin Durant with the Warriors. Luxury makes us better objectively, not a necessity. We're still outstanding without him. Devontae Smith can be a number 1 receiver. Dotson can be a 2. Goddard is an excellent receiving target. By the way, it's not like can Jalen throw 25, 30 times a game? Sure he can. We saw it against the Rams. But we'd also like to get Saquon Barkley involved. We'd also love to get the ball to the reigning offensive player of the year who had 2,000 rushing yards last year. Get him involved. Establish the line of scrimmage. Neutralize a great pass rush like the New York Giants have. That was impressive by Philadelphia. And given that the trade deadline's next week, I think it is absolutely on the board that A.J. Brown has played his final game as an Eagle. I've said this for a month. They don't need him to be successful. They don't. It's a run-first offense. Jalen spreads the ball around. Offensive line dominates the line of scrimmage. You've still got Devontae Smith and Dotson and Goddard. They're fine. The main question for Philadelphia I have is Kevin Patullo. But hey, Jalen's won a Super Bowl with a less than ideal OC. He did it last year with Kellen Moore. So this idea that he is just indispensable is A.J. Brown to this offense is nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. He's not having that good of a year compared to previous years, statistically speaking. And they're 6-2. And they're playing great football. Even after his best games, still calling for the football. Still trying to, they're using me, but they're not using me. What the heck's that supposed to mean? They did use you. And you're still not happy? That's the only thing that could break up what the Philadelphia Eagles got going is internal drama. Get out of the building, gone. It's over. So there you go. All right, we're going to take a break. Get back to the Packers and Steelers game and talk about Jordan Love after the 1-minute break on Carving Up Live. And also get into Drake Maye. Drake freaking Maye. That, my friends, Patriot fans, that is a top 10 quarterback, no questions asked. I'll explain why after the break on Carving Up Live. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Thanks for stopping by on a Monday that I gotta admit, not a show that I was necessarily looking forward to. At least the opening segment. I love doing Carving It Up, as you guys know. But the opening segment, I'm glad that one is a wrap, and I have a sneaky suspicion that I'm gonna have to do a lot more like that. Maybe part of the reason I was really irritated is because I was literally across, like in a different room, like right over there, watching the Steelers game with my sister, who's a Packers fan, and it's going well, and here we go, and outside of one drive, they're getting some pressure on Jordan Love, and bend but don't break. And then the second half, it was an utter disaster, and I'm just going to keep it $1. I had to pay $10. That's what happened. That's $10 that I now no longer have, so it's not great. But let's talk about the Packers, and let's talk about their quarterback, Jordan Love, who was utterly sensational last night. We can show you his numbers. Now, again, as I said earlier, he did play the Steelers defense. That says Jordan Love against the Packers. I apologize. That should say Jordan Love against the Steelers, regardless. 3 pass touchdowns, no picks, 78% completion, 360 pass yards, 134 rating, 89 QBR 0 to 100, which is outstanding. And that bottom graphic, their bottom stat, 11 for 18. against the blitz was Jordan Love. He was flawless. And I've said all year long, I picked the Lions to go to the NFC title game, but I picked the Packers to win the NFC North. I thought he was the key to it. Is that this was a defense that was top 6 in yards and in points allowed last season. They were a great defense in 2024, just couldn't get the pop offensively. Why? The way I interpreted, the way I watched games last year, I never thought Jordan Love was healthy. After the first game, he gets hurt at the end in Brazil on that awful playing surface against Philadelphia, injures his knee, then gets hurt again in a game against Jacksonville about a month later and comes back as never really the same guy. Has a 3-turnover game against the Eagles, 3 interceptions in that playoff game against Philadelphia. Like, never quite looks like the Jordan Love from the second half of 2023 who's going out there and dominating Dallas on the road and putting the Packers in position before the 2 late picks to beat San Francisco, the 1 seed, on the road in Santa Clara. Is that if Jordan Love's healthy this year, with the weapons Green Bay's got? And by the way, they're missing a number of guys. They're missing guys like Jaden Reed. They got Christian Watson back, which is huge. So now you got Christian Watson. You got Romeo Doubs. You've got Tucker Kraft, who was a man amongst boys last night. Tucker Kraft was awesome on National Tight End Day. Consistently got open. Jordan Love making all of the off-platform throws that Packer fans kind of grew to know and love from Aaron Rodgers. And to a certain degree, not to the level of Aaron, but from Brett Favre as well. Is that when you have a coach in Matt LaFleur, who initially I was not a big LaFleur fan. I'm like, clock management, and the clock management at the end against Dallas was bad. But clock management, not great. Green Bay doesn't appear to be a very physical team. I remember that first year or two, Green Bay would kind of get pushed around to a certain degree at the line of scrimmage. As time's gone on, that has flipped. Green Bay's always had a great offensive line. They've always, it's kind of like Notre Dame. Notre Dame always has a great O-line. Same with the Green Bay Packers. But now they've invested in the defensive line. They've obviously had Rashawn Gary for some time. They go out and get Micah Parsons to add to a defense that was already really good. Jair Alexander, and I said this before the year, was an addition by subtraction move. Jair Alexander not only was a declining player, but wasn't that great in the locker room, so you get him out of the building. Sure, do you have questions about guys like Valentine and Nixon? Yeah, to a degree. Especially when you're not facing a team like Pittsburgh that has one guy that scares you, DK Metcalf. If you're facing the Detroit Lions, which we saw them against Detroit in week 1, and they looked pretty fantastic. The big knot for me on Green Bay, and this is why 2 weeks ago I had them out of Bryson's best 10 completely. Last week I had them at number 10. Because my mindset was they haven't played a good start to finish game since that Lions game. Like, they were fine in the second half against Washington after a blistering start. They were not good offensively against the Cleveland Browns, only scoring 10 points and still could have easily won the game if Jordan Love doesn't throw a late pick. They score 40, but also give up 40 against Dallas. Giving up 40 to Dallas is nothing to be, not too shabby when you're considering how great the Cowboys offense is, but you're supposed to win that game if your offense competes and plays like it did that night in Dallas. The next game you played I think it was the Bengals at Lambeau. Didn't look so good in that one either. Joe Flacco had opportunities to get back in the game, wasn't able to take advantage completely. Weren't able to get stops on big 3rd down and 4th downs to Jamar Chase. If Micah Parsons doesn't get 3 sacks against the Cardinals, you probably lose that game. Last night, it wasn't even that good of a start. The defense was actually fine. Chris Boswell's just one of the best kickers, if not the best kicker in all of football. As Aaron Rodgers talked about after the game, he kind of bailed us out on a number of occasions from long distance. But given the fact that you start at the 35-yard line nowadays, that's not bad, forcing long field goals in today's NFL. But in the second half, you hold the Steelers scoreless outside of that late drive, which, let's be honest, kind of meant nothing. I guess the Steelers got a field goal in the second half to make it 19-14, but it was like field goal, punt, a number of punts, then they got the late touchdown. Like, that was all to make the cake look a little bit better. That was all icing. There was not a lot of cake there. And Aaron Rodgers talked about after the game how impressed he's been with his former protege this season.
Yeah, he played great. Played fantastic. He's had a really nice season. He's been really efficient with the football. He's opportunistic, though. I felt like he was very patient tonight. He took the run solutions. He took the checkdowns, moved in the pocket well. Thought he played really well.
Jordan Love has a few throws a game that kind of make you wince a little bit, like, oh, he shouldn't have thrown that. Last night he didn't. And again, some of that, it's kind of like, again, it's like if you face the Bengals defense or the Cowboys defense. And these days, like I said, the Steelers defense. The secondary isn't very good. But again, Pittsburgh, Terrell Austin kept bringing the blitz. 11 for 18. and I believe I could be wrong on this. We deal with technical difficulties. Hang on. Okay, I think we're back. I'm looking at the monitor. Okay, I think we're back. Okay, so I think I could be wrong on this, but I think all of his touchdowns last night came. We're dealing with technical difficulties right now. Hang on. Okay, so I'm looking at my monitor. It looks fine, but I see my connection on the top right of my screen. Hang on. Okay, I think we're fine. I'm looking at my monitor. I haven't frozen a while, so that's good. We've been dealing with some connection issues here, so I apologize to anybody watching. We've been dealing with some connection problems. But regardless, what I was saying, I believe I read that all of Jordan Love's touchdown passes did come against the blitz. So, right, he was poised. He was making all the throws we used to see a prime Aaron Rodgers make off balance. You have to imagine a level of proximity to Aaron for as long as he was around. Aaron Rodgers certainly helped him in that regard. And got to give it to him. He was sensational. And he's playing for an organization in Green Bay that values the right things, that does strongly believe in a great offensive line, that strongly believes in maybe not necessarily having a true number one. And let's be honest, did Aaron Rodgers ever have until Devontae Adams at least, like a true number one? You could say Jordy Nelson, I get that. He, at least to me, and this is not disrespect to Jordy, felt like more product of Aaron than like a true apex number one, like at the time, like a Dez Bryant, a Julio Jones, Megatron, Antonio Brown. He never felt like he was on that tier quite. Number one receiver, not on that tier. That's what it feels like in Green Bay now. I think Matthew Golden can evolve into being a number one-esque type receiver. Plus, you've got Dobbs and now Watson back from injury, and Jaden Reed hopefully will come back sooner rather than later. And you've got a great tight end in Tucker Kraft, and you've got a good running game in Josh Jacobs. Green Bay values the right things. They draft offense, they develop offense, they believe in defense. Heck, they will give a gigantic contract to arguably one of the best defensive players in all of football, Micah Parsons, to bolster that unit, to be able to put their defense in position where offensive player with the lead, Micah Parsons can come after the quarterback and give the ball right back to Jordan Love. They don't spend all their money on one side of the ball, or at least the wrong side of the ball, like the Steelers do. Or they're not like the Bengals, for example, who believes you can just win shootouts. Or the Cowboys, evidently. Hey, we're just going to score 40 points a game and win. It's not the NFL. We saw with Dallas yesterday. Sometimes the offense is going to have a bad day at the office. Can you win those games? So that was impressive. I thought Jordan Love was excellent. It looks like we're still dealing with some connection issues. Yeah, I'm looking at my monitor right now, and again, I apologize to anybody watching if we freeze a little bit. So hopefully that won't be an issue. Like I said, we've been dealing with some connection problems where I'm at, and so hopefully we should be able to get that resolved. Hopefully by the rest of the show, and certainly by next show on Wednesday. How about the Patriots? My gosh. How about, man, we're freezing again. Hang on, guys. Let's see. I'm going to, you know what? How about this? Why don't we go to break? Let's take a quick 1 minute break and then we'll come back. I sincerely apologize for the technical difficulties. We'll come back and talk about Drake Maye and the Patriots. Okay, I think we should have our technical difficulties resolved. I hope that's the case. I'm looking at my little bar here on my streaming service, and it looks like it's totally fine. I'm looking at, let's see if my monitor comes back. It looks fine on my monitor, so hopefully anybody out there watching or listening, we don't freeze from here on out. I sincerely apologize for any of the difficulties we've had. Okay, so let's transition to Drake Maye and the New England Patriots, who have been, listen, people thought before the season New England could be a playoff team. I think that was a reasonable expectation given the money they spent for agency, given the massive bolster in terms of their coaching staff with Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels and company. I don't think anybody saw this coming. Even the biggest Drake Maye believers and fans in the world, of which I was kind of like, I was a wait-and-see guy with Drake Maye. I wasn't as big of a believer in him as I was in guys like Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels. Jaden, thus far, outside of injuries, has panned out. Caleb, not so much. And Michael Penix as well. He hasn't panned out quite yet. And I wasn't as low in him as like J.J. McCarthy, who I do not believe in whatsoever. I was like, okay, I see the talent there. I see the incredible arm strength. I see the mobility. What's the system that he's entering? Well, initially last year, it was an atrocious one. It was a Gerard Mayo, which was really kind of an offshoot of Bill Belichick coaching staff. Well, now you get Josh McDaniels as your OC. And Josh McDaniels is the classic example of terrible head coach, great coordinator. We've seen this with guys like Steve Spagnuolo. We've seen it with guys like Robert Saleh. Not very good head coaches, A-plus OCs. Because initially it was, yeah, his success is tied to Tom Brady. It's hard to screw up when you got the greatest quarterback of all time. But then he's coaching Mac Jones. And if you see Mac Jones lately, as more DCs get film on Mac Jones, the worse he looks. Shocker. He's limited. Well, with Josh McDaniels, that man was a Pro Bowler. Mac Jones was a Pro Bowler. And then now you look at Drake Maye, you see the year one, year two jump that we see all the time from all the great quarterbacks. So can we see what Drake Maye has done over the last 5 games in the Patriots' 5-game winning streak? He's been nothing short of sensational. 10 touchdowns, 1 pick. A man's completing 77% of his throws. And by the way, this isn't dink and dunk stuff. And the man is dealing with bad offensive line protection, moving to his left, making unbelievable throws down the sidelines. 248 pass yards a game, 134 rating, and a QBR 0 to 100 of 84th. So the man has played flawless football over the last 5 games. And by the way, if you take out the opening game against the Raiders, which we all know week 1 in many ways can be kind of a mirage, right? Like we've seen teams, we saw the Titans go to Denver and kind of give it to the Broncos. Those 2 matchups today, how do you think that game would go? Week 1, it is almost an extension of the preseason to a degree. I mean, the Raiders beating the Patriots is an unthinkable thought here as we go into week 9. If you take that game out, Drake Maye's had a passer rating over 100 in every single game. I'm here to tell you this. I challenge you to name 10 quarterbacks better than him. Let's play that exercise. 10 quarterbacks that you believe are indisputably better than Drake Maye. Let's go division by division. So in his own division, Josh Allen is better. I know he outplayed him in Buffalo. Josh Allen's a better quarterback. He's obviously better than whoever the Jets got. He's clearly better than Tua. AFC North, better than Aaron. Burrow's tough because he's never healthy. Like that's, I've said for years, the clear 4 in this order, Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow. Burrow to me is not the clear number 4, and it's not even his fault. He's just not available. Best ability is availability, and the offensive line sucks in Cincinnati. Hopefully Burrow goes to greener pastures. Love to have him in Pittsburgh, I'll tell you that, with a different coaching staff. So Burrow, I'll give Burrow the benefit of the doubt. Let's say a healthy Burrow I think is better than Drake Maye. Lamar is better than Drake Maye. Cleveland, stop. Daniel Jones, I know he's having a great year. He's not better than Drake Maye. Trevor Lawrence is not. CJ Stroud is not. Cam Ward is not. So thus far, we've got 3 guys that to me are indisputably better. Josh, Burrow, and Lamar. AFC West. Bo Nix is not better. Boy, Herbert, it's a toss-up. Herbert's never won a playoff game. Herbert has a tendency to play his worst in the biggest games. See last year against the Houston Texans when he threw, I think it was 4 picks against Houston as a road favorite, which the Chargers were. Again, resume, I'll give Herbert the benefit of the doubt. So let's go to 4. Obviously, Mahomes is better. That's 5. Vegas, forget about it. Jalen Hurts to me is better at 6. We've seen Jalen win with 6 different play callers with different running games, different offensive lines, different receivers, temperamental receivers as we've seen. Bad defenses, good defenses, doesn't matter. He still wins. He's gone to 2 Super Bowls, and he's the reigning Super Bowl MVP. So I'd say Jalen. That's 6. I think Dak is working with near nothing in Dallas, so I would go Dak at 7. Jaden, it's toss-up. I like what Drake has put on performance more than I do Jaden, so I would take Drake. Jackson Dart's too early to tell, so he would be better than Dart. Love, also a toss-up. I would go Jordan Love, so that's 8. Goff, I go with Drake Maye. I'd take Drake Maye over Caleb, whoever the Vikings trot out. I give Baker the advantage. That's 8. Is that it? Is that 8? I believe that's, hold on, let me count. That's Josh, Burrow, Lamar, Herbert, Mahomes, and you could convince me out of Herbert. Hurts, Dak, Love, Baker. That's 9. You could probably convince me out of Herbert. You really could. Like the more I honestly think about that one, it's when he's not working with a great running game, when the offensive line isn't perfect, when he doesn't have 2 great tackles, he struggles. He's been great this year, but he can struggle. And there's an element of, man, can I count on you in the biggest spots? Now, we haven't seen that with Drake Maye yet. That right now, it's a complete mystery. By all accounts, it looks like the Patriots, especially given their schedule, the Patriots are going to cruise to the playoffs. Whether they win the division remains to be seen. They're getting in the playoffs. Their schedule the rest of the way is a piece of cake. I think he's playing at a higher level than Justin Herbert, given what he's working with a bad O-line, with a running game that is good. They finally used Henderson yesterday. TreVeyon Henderson. Patriots fans have been begging Josh McDaniels to use TreVeyon Henderson more effectively than he has. You saw it yesterday. Yes, you have Diggs. Older player comes and goes. Keyshawn Boutte is good, right? You've got Matt Collins, who shows up to the party from time to time, shows up to the stadium barefoot, as we all know. Like, they've got weapons, but the Chargers have a great running game, a great offensive line, and Ladd McConkey, and Quentin Johnston. They've also got Keenan Allen. Like, they've got weapons in LA and a coaching staff that's proven. Which New England you could argue as well. So it's the guy's playing unbelievable football. He truly, truly is. And so you give Drake Maye a lot of credit for that. And I think he is firmly, I think Vegas has him at number 3 for MVP. He's played outstanding football this season. Transitioning now. Oh, boy. Let's talk about him. America's team, Dallas Cowboys.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
Whew, that was bad. That was where my upset of the week faltered in a major, major way. So the Cowboys lost 44-24 against the Denver Broncos yesterday. By the way, those 7 points came via volunteer legend, and I say legend in the most loose of terms. They get a touchdown late from the great Joe Milton, who's Dak's backup and has an arm that I think rivals Josh Allen, and I'm not kidding. So Dallas gets blown out. So I think yesterday the main theme that you saw all around the NFL was a slap of reality in the sense of, okay, we've got our contenders, we got our teams that can win the Super Bowl. And I think we're going to see that tonight between Washington and Kansas City. Teams that can win the Super Bowl. Teams that, okay, yeah, they're good playoff teams. And teams that aren't very good. Or teams that can't take advantage of big-time breaks. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Chicago. You know, the Niners, it's not that they can't take advantage of breaks. They haven't had anything go their way as it relates to injuries. There's a haves and have-nots type of separation that comes in week 8, 9, 10. Then once we get into like a month from now, we know who's good and who's not. We know who's firing coaches. We know who's going to draft quarterbacks and who's hoping to hold the Lombardi Trophy in February. There's a clear gap and separation there. Not that we thought the Cowboys were exactly Super Bowl contenders at any point this year, but yesterday, and I said after that win against Washington, like, I think Dallas is going to make the playoffs. And by the way, I'm not ruling that off the table, not with that offense. But the reality of Dallas is the reality of last year's Bengals, is that if the offense does not show up to the party, they're cooked. If Dak Prescott has the audacity to have a 2-pick game, not have his best day at the office, right? Kevontae Turpin drops passes, and the O-line doesn't protect well. To be fair, no one protects well against that Broncos front with Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, Zach Allen. People are like, well, Patrick Surtain was out. As we know, the greatest pass defense is a great pass rush, and last I checked, Broncos lead the league in sacks by a comfortable margin. I think Jim Nantz and Tony Romo said yesterday they are on pace to potentially break the single-season sack record and do so in 16 games. Not with the extra 17th, which we know the NFL's had for the last 5 seasons. So in that regard, that's not all that surprising. But there comes a point in time for all of us in life where you just got to admit when you're wrong. It could be in an argument with your spouse, argument with a friend. It could be made a decision in life. You felt strongly about it, and gosh darn it, I missed on that one. There comes a point in time where it's just, man, fall on the sword, take the L, and move on. And the Dallas Cowboys are going to have to learn. It's too early to, so to speak, fall on the sword, I guess. But for Jerry Jones, and to a degree, for the and it's not many, but for the few Cowboys fans like, oh, Miss Micah, we don't need him. You sure? Let's see these defensive numbers for Dallas, because they are second to last in points allowed. The Cowboys give up 31 points a game. 31st in points allowed, 31st in yards allowed, 31st in yards per play, 31st in pass yards per play, last in pass touchdowns allowed, last in passer rating allowed, 29th in rush yards per game allowed, and they are dead last. If you play the Cowboys defense, you convert on third down more than half the time, 52.4%. You're telling me Micah Parsons couldn't do something about that? Because I'm watching, and the Broncos have a great O-line. I've said for weeks, The Broncos have arguably the best O-line, D-line combination in all of football. They really do. D-line leads league in sacks. O-line is fantastic. Created some massive holes for R.J. Harvey yesterday and J.K. Dobbins. But the greatest pass defense is a pass rush. And he's out right now. Not like his backups are much worse. I've said for years, Trayvon Diggs is not a good corner. He's not. I used to joke all the time. Anytime I'd watch a Cowboy game and Trayvon Diggs bid on a play, gave a big play down the field, I used to sing The Gambler by Kenny Rogers. You got to know. I don't want to get demonetized, so I don't want to sing the whole song. But the point of all that is, he's a gambler. Right? He bites on a double move and he's cooked down the field. There's a reason he had umpteen interceptions in 2021 and still gave up over 1,000 yards receiving. Why? Because quarterback's like, I'm still going to try him. Because it's boom or bust. It's either going to be a pick or it's going to be a 50-yard completion. Micah Parsons could cover for that. Because if the quarterback's taking the snap and number 11 is coming 1,000 miles an hour in the backfield, I mean, did you see it last night? Once again, Micah Parsons getting to Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I think it was first or second drive of the game he got to Aaron Rodgers. And all throughout, just constant pressure. The Packers and Jeff Hafley, who has done a great job as the DC, bringing Micah up the middle. And that, to me, is where Mike is his most dangerous. And you saw it last night because the Steelers and a Pat Frymuth, a Jonnu Smith, a Washington would be able to chip him, kind of stop his momentum. But if Mike is coming straight up the gut, there's nothing you can do about it. If you get kind of a running start, you're in bad shape in that regard. Cowboys can't do that. There comes a point in time, if you're a Jerry Jones, buddy, take the L. You lost this. It's okay. It's okay. You lost this one. You decided to let your pride and ego get in the way, per usual, and say, you know what? Best or second best player on my team? By a mile, the best player on my defense. And we don't need him. We're just going to outscore teams. Because I believe this is going to be the modern-day Herschel Walker trade. The 4-player, I guess 5 if you want to include Kenny Clark, who, Kenny Clark, speaking of, I don't want to put this on Kenny Clark or put this on any single member of the Cowboys defense, but wasn't the Cowboys defense, wasn't the whole appeal of trading Micah? Micah sucks at stopping the run. Well, the Cowboys have traded him, and they are dead last, or rather 29th. My apologies. 4th worst in the NFL in terms of yards per game allowed on the ground. So there's that. And I'm not even saying Micah was that great at stopping the run. That was a criticism of mine going back to last season. But you can deal with that if he's making the quarterback's life a living hell in the pocket, which he does. Jerry was saying, kind of covering his butt, saying, do I believe we're a player? He was talking about this in regards to a trade deadline, but certain little remarks he would make, he would kind of allude to Micah without saying Micah's name. If you watched Jerry's presser yesterday, which, owners do pressers all the time, he said that, we're not one player away on defense, which to me clearly was like, hey, guys, don't get on me for trading Micah Parsons. I am by no means saying the Cowboys would be a good defense if Micah was still there. They'd probably be middle of the pack as they've been for the last few years. I can promise you they would not be the worst defense in football. Promise you. And so, take the L. And for the Cowboys fans out there, and I hate to give this comparison because I got a lot of friends who are Cowboys fans. Don't be like Yankees fans. And what I mean by that is Yankees fans, my buddy Alfred Parslow Jr., shout out to Alfred, the host of the Metropolitan Report. Go subscribe to his podcast. He said all the time when Juan Soto went to the Mets over the Yankees and, spurned the Yankees, that New York fans had like a spurned ex-girlfriend syndrome where it's like every time Juan Soto came up, they booed him. It's like, bro, he was there for one season and he helped you get to a World Series. Why are you booing him? I mean, Mets offered him more money. Kudos to him, right? No issue with that. Don't be mad at Micah, guys. Be mad at Jerry. Be mad at Jerry that he wasn't willing to give Micah a contract that he was obviously deserving of and had earned. You're seeing it in Green Bay. And your defense, on the other hand, is quite literally the worst in the NFL. It was almost like trading one of the best players at his position in the entire sport was not going to make your unit better, especially when, because you say, well, what about A.J. Brown? You're advocating the Eagles trade A.J. Brown. Eagles still have a loaded offense without A.J. Brown. Hurts, Saquon, the O-line, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. They're still loaded on that side of the ball. Cowboys, they got nobody that scares you. Nobody that scares you. Diggs, Clark, anybody. The linebackers in Dallas are abysmal. So Dak, who had been on an absolute heater in the last month before the game, Dak has a bad game. All of a sudden, you lose by 20. I don't know. I said yesterday that, or I said this morning on the Bryson Carver show every Monday and Friday on 89.5 The Edge before you tune in. I said that, Dak's MVP case took a hit in the sense that, he had the 2 picks, both of which were 100% on Dak. Passer rating in the 50s. QBR was in the 60s, so I didn't think Dak was as bad as what the passer would indicate, and the QBR would show you that. But in a weird way, is that, man, Dak doesn't have a good game, and they get the doors blown off them. Isn't that maybe like a doesn't that bolster his MVP case in a weird way? I don't know. Man, maybe I'm just grasping for straws. Dak's still in the MVP race. One bad game doesn't take him out of that. But, man, yesterday was very much a separation of, man, look up and down the roster. Quarterback advantage, Dallas. Receivers advantage, Dallas. Run game, it's close, but actually it's not close. In terms of depth, RJ Harvey, J.K. Dobbins, Broncos the advantage. Offensive line, it's not even remotely close. Denver maybe has the best offensive line in football. Dallas is one of the worst. And then defense. Pass rush, Broncos by a mile. Linebackers, Broncos by a mile without Dre Greenlaw, who was out in this game. Secondary, even without Patrick Surtain, they're still great. They're still loaded. So, coach, Sean Payton. So, you definitely saw separation between the haves and have-nots. And the Cowboys have not won against the Denver Broncos since 1995. Ironically, the last year the Cowboys won the Super Bowl. So, take an L, Jerry, and take an L to the few, and it's not many, but the few Cowboys fans who was like, good riddance, Micah. You need him desperately. Obviously. You've needed him desperately for years. And now you'll have him. Look at the offense. All right, let's do a recap of the rest of Week 8 action around the National Football League. What did we have yesterday? The New York Jets, which, my goodness, boy, the day started brutally for the Jets, for the NFL family, and most importantly for the family of this far too young man, Nick Mangold, the former center for the New York Jets for 11 years from 2006 to 2016. Captain for the team, helped them get to back-to-back AFC Championship games, was a beloved leader in that locker room without question. Tragically passed away yesterday at the age of 41. He had a kidney ailment. He had actually said that in recent weeks that he was looking for a kidney transplant. And, man, the fact that his story is like far too many out there who weren't able to get the necessary transplant in order to save their life is just devastating. I think I read that Nick Mangold has like 3 kids. Like it's just, it's gutting. So my prayers go to his family, for all the Jets fans out there who love this guy. He was one of the most beloved members in all of the NFL. You saw Rex Ryan. Now, I've been hard on Rex Ryan, as an analyst, but you saw Rex Ryan yesterday just crushed, just devastated, because he coached this guy. And he told a story about how when Nick Mangold, when Rex Ryan was clearly on the verge of being fired, I guess this was at the end of the 14th, I guess 2014, because then Bowles came in the next year. He said that Nick Mangold was like injured. He said, and I mean, he was like injured. He was hurt bad. And he wanted to play that last game for Rex Ryan. Tells you about the kind of team captain he was, tells you about the leader he was in that locker room. And it's just, it's awful. It's absolutely awful. So nothing but prayers for his family and for his loved ones out there. This is nothing short of devastating. And so it's fitting in a way that the Jets won, not just that they won, but they won the way that they did for Nick Mangold. They won 39-38 in a high-scoring affair in Cincinnati. We're down to 15 to start the fourth quarter, and then down 14 at one point mid-fourth quarter, come back and win the game. It's just an emotional day in general for the Jets. The passing of Nick Mangold, they win their first game of the year for Aaron Glenn, who gets his first victory as a head coach, and then you got Justin Fields after the game literally talk about, like, I was literally the emotion of the last few weeks. He's not playing well. The owners call him out. He said he was literally in his closet crying. He had reached that level of an emotional low. And for him to go out there and he didn't light the world on fire, but he was efficient, played well within the pocket, obviously ran relatively well and helped the Jets be able to come back and win that game without Garrett Wilson was highly impressive. Now, again, it's the Bengals defense. They're awful. Louis Romo clearly was not the problem as we're seeing now with the Colts, but that was a really gutsy win on the part of the New York Jets. They had every opportunity to quit, fall to 0-8. The season just continues to roll in the wrong direction. They didn't. Very, very impressed with what I saw from the Jets yesterday. Also, I hate to say it, But impressed with what I saw from the Ravens yesterday against the Chicago Bears. 30-16 was the final. The main story of this game, listen, Tyler Huntley was solid. Caleb Williams really struggled. The pick to Nate Wiggins was a terrible throw. Quickly, the thing I'll say about Caleb is this, because y'all know I've been a big believer in him. The biggest issue I see with Caleb is that he doesn't have touch on deep throws. Like, if you see Caleb throw a deep ball, he throws it on like a straight line. And that is hard for receivers. Like, bam, I got to catch it like almost in one motion to a certain degree. Whereas if you throw it on an arc to a certain degree, which Herbert does well, Dak does well, Mahomes and Matthew Stafford, like these guys are the best in the world at this, where you can track it. Receivers can kind of look the ball into their hands as opposed to bam, because they got a defensive back right in their heel, unless the guy's wide open. And even still, that's a hard pass to catch. You got to turn around like that's the thing with Caleb is there's not a lot of touch on his deep throws. So like that's something he's got to work on. I don't know if that's something with Ben Johnson, with the quarterback coach, maybe a private quarterback coach. He's got to get that down because that to me is the biggest issue with his accuracy. He throws the ball too darn hard every single play. Right, when it's some of these tight window throws on the sideline, Caleb's great at that. But some of these intermediate routes, deep throws down the field, he throws it on a rope as opposed to on an arc. And so that's something that I've seen from Caleb last year and this year. Like, God, you've got to improve that, man. On the part of the Ravens, they might be in some real trouble. Not in terms of their season. Their season's kind of back on track to a certain degree. All right, you got a short week against Miami. You should win that game. You're a 7.5-point favorite. Pittsburgh's schedule is brutal down the stretch, and you play them twice. It's the fact that Lamar Jackson was a full participant in practice all week, including on Friday. We know you practice on Friday, you're playing on Sunday. And then last second, Lamar Jackson's out. So it's like, what is going on with this? Is this Lamar pulled himself? Was this a disconnect between him and the Ravens? Apparently he practiced with the scout team, so that counts as a full participant practice, which the NFL says doesn't. The CBA apparently says that the Ravens could be stripped of a draft pick if they're found to be guilty of any sort of shady business in that regard. So it's not great, but kudos to Tyler Huntley, who I never understood why Cooper Rush was Lamar's backup. Cooper Rush is a good backup, but he's not stylistically similar to Lamar. Right? Like he can't move the pocket. Arm strength isn't quite what Lamar is. He can't take off and run if need be, if nothing's there. Tyler Huntley can. Tyler Huntley is the perfect backup for Lamar Jackson. Heck, he was a Pro Bowler in 2022? But he was good yesterday. Derrick Henry passed Walter Payton in rushing touchdowns, so good win for the Baltimore Ravens. This one shocked me. This was maybe the most shocking result of the day. Miami over Atlanta 34-10. It was shocking to me in part because it was my if I were a betting man game, which another 1-2 week, which I cannot dig myself out of this hole. It is a brutal thing. But Tua, it looked like the locker room had given up on. Heck, seemed like the coach had given up on him throughout the week. Maybe it's because he was in the friendly confines of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where famously he had the greatest moment of his life. The deep ball to Devontae Smith to win the national championship game against Georgia back in early 2018. Maybe it was the good vibes of Mercedes-Benz for Tua. I don't know what it was. But Atlanta has a good defense in theory, and he torched him. Jalen Waddle was great. Kirk Cousins started for Michael Penix Jr. You see why they benched Kirk Cousins for Michael Penix Jr.? So I'm making a rule for myself now moving forward, because this is 2 straight weeks that I have, and I say this in air quotes, bet the Atlanta Falcons. The segment is called If I Were a Bet Man. I took them plus 2.5 against San Francisco last week. Nope. Took them minus 7.5 against the Dolphins. Big nope. Hey, rough stuff. Atlanta is they're too young, man. They're not ready to win yet. I'll tell you who is ready to win, potentially Buffalo. 40-9 against the Carolina Panthers. Wasn't remotely close. James Cook was the man of the hour. James Cook in this game, 19 carries for 216 yards, 2 touchdowns. I believe he did all that in 3 quarters. Right, the Bills were up so much, they're like, we don't want to get James Cook hurt in the 4th quarter, but he was great. And this goes to just the change that we've seen since the last quarter of 2023 on to now from the Buffalo Bills that I've talked about for a long time is they don't need Josh Allen to be Superman. I mean, Josh Allen yesterday was like 12 for 19. Wasn't terribly efficient, but he didn't have to be. What James Cook is doing what he's doing when the Bills offensive line, which is one of the best in all football, is completely controlling the line of scrimmage. James Cook has massive holes to run the football. You're like, Josh has taken a lot of hits in his career. Josh has had a lot of games back in the day where he's had to throw the ball 35, 40 times. Let's limit his pitch count. Let's not waste him if we don't have to. Because next week you got Kansas City. Better believe Josh Allen's going to be throwing the ball 30 plus times. So that's the James Brady way. It's why I've said I mean, you saw LSU fired Brian Kelly yesterday, and Florida's fired oh my gosh, Billy Napier. If I were both of those schools in the SEC, I know Kiffin is, the more attractive candidate. I'd go after Joe Brady. Joe Brady was the OC in LSU, at LSU, when Joe Burrow was there. How'd that work? Or I guess he was technically like the passing game coordinator. He was the OC. I think this guy deserves a shot to be a head coach in college football. I really do. Like, establishes the run, gets the best out of Josh Allen, has helped Josh Allen play a level of football that is kind of mistake-free, which is terrifying for the rest of the league. If Josh Allen gives you the upside without the downside, look the heck out. That's why he won MVP last year. So, boy, I can't wait for that game, Buffalo and Kansas City. I'll say this real quick before I move to Texans and Niners. I have about as much respect for Jim Nantz as I have any human being involved in, not sports broadcasting. I think Jim Nantz is a pros pro, is truly one of the best. Love the guy. Hope I get to meet him one day. I have that much respect for Jim Nantz. Great at golf, great at basketball, great at football. But he kept teasing the game yesterday, and maybe this was a CBS promo, I don't know, but him and Romo seem to be egging it on to a certain degree when I was watching the Dallas and Broncos game. Next week, 425, we've got the Chiefs taking on the Bills, a renewal of the best rivalry in the NFL. I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. We're doing this again? They play great games. They play entertaining games. It is not a rivalry. Patrick Mahomes is the only quarterback in NFL history to be 4-0 against another opponent in the playoffs. It's never happened. Check the list. Never happened. 4-0 against Josh Allen. A rivalry has to have a push and pull. The Chiefs and Bills is not Patriots versus Colts or Patriots versus Broncos. In other words, Brady Manning. There's a push and pull with that. Matter of fact, I think Manning, I could be wrong on this. I think Manning was 3-1 in AFC title games against Brady. So the push and pull actually went in favor of Peyton. Obviously, Brady, beating them in the playoffs before that. But what this is, to use a cross-sport example, it's Warriors-Rockets. Like, the Rockets made some series interesting. They took the Warriors 7 one year. I guess 2 years, if you want to count this year's playoffs, different Rockets team. But hey, they've taken the Warriors 7 games twice. In 2019, looked like they have them on the ropes, and it's like, no, they're not gonna beat Golden State. They never have beaten Golden State. Steph's 5-0 against the Rockets. It's not a rivalry. That's Chiefs-Bills, not a rivalry. If the Bills win, then it's a rivalry. Bills win in the playoffs, I should say, because the Bills always beat the Chiefs in the regular season, and I would not be shocked in the slightest. I said the Kansas City Chiefs would lose one game the rest of the entire season. This might be it, because the Bills always beat the Chiefs. So there you go. Texans beat the Niners within 5 minutes of this game, folks. I was like, what was I thinking? Because my rationale for picking San Francisco on the road was, okay, I know they're beat up. I know they're hurt. But Houston had to go on a plane, go all the way to Seattle, a game that started at 7 o'clock Pacific time, 9 o'clock Central time in Houston. So by the time they play that game, on a Monday night, mind you, fly all the way home, the sun's probably come up at this point in Houston. And then they got turned right around and play a physical Niners team. That was my rationale. And then I thought about it. I was like, okay, what were you thinking? The Niners are beat up, and as I've said for weeks, I know the Cinderella run was cute for a while. It was, for all the stands of this player, it was a nice little push. But the carriage, just like in Cinderella, the carriage is starting to turn back into a pumpkin. Is that when more defensive coordinators get film on old Mac Jones, like a Todd Bowles in Tampa Bay, like a Raheem Morris in Atlanta, like a D'Amico Ryans in Houston, as the great defensive coaches get more film on Mac, he's not as good. You saw it yesterday. Doesn't move that well. He did have one, to his credit, did have one really nice throw to George Kittle. Outside of that, wasn't very good. The Niners, for whatever reason, did not establish Christian McCaffrey that much. Maybe there was an element for Kyle Shanahan of, okay, Kittle's back, Jawan Jennings is back. Let's not run McCaffrey in the ground. We still got a whole nother 2 months left of the regular season. Let's save Christian for some of the biggest spots where we need him. Maybe that's what it was. The Texans also did dominate time of possession, so that factor as well. CJ Stroud was great. That was the best CJ game we've had all season long. Couple touchdowns, 30 of 39, over 75% completion, 88 QBR, which was impressive. But man, the Niners just running out of bodies. No Nick Bosa, no Fred Warner. They had a bunch of kids on defense. And the fact that Salah's done as good of a job as he's done with his defense is a credit to him. But man, they're running out of guys. Bucks over the Saints 23-3. This was the only if I were a Batman game that hit because Tampa Bay has dominated the Saints in the Baker Mayfield era. What's crazy is, and maybe this is a credit to Tampa, I don't know. Maybe their defense is back. Maybe. But they scored 23 and 7 of those came on defense. Like, Baker did not have that good of a game. The Buccaneers passing offense was really hit or miss and mostly miss. But when you have Spencer Rattler throwing a pick six to a lineman, and when Spencer Rattler's getting benched for Tyler Shogue, who also throws a pick, you know, if it weren't for the Titans, the Saints would be the worst team in football. But I did pick the Saints to win 2 games this year. Let's see. Let's look at the Saints' schedule. Can they get another win the rest of the year? They got the Rams. That's a loss. Panthers, loss. Falcons, probably a loss, although Atlanta's weird. At Miami, it's in Miami, so the Dolphins probably win. At Tampa, loss. Panthers at home, loss. Jets at home. Maybe they win that game. At the Titans, that's an interesting game. I didn't realize they played the Titans in week 17. So that's like a battle for the first pick, potentially. That's a battle to get Fernando Mendoza from Indiana, potentially, who could be the first pick of the 2026 draft. That's interesting. Colts beating the Titans 38-14. Titans are awful. We know this. For Indianapolis, I mean, look at it. They're the best offense in football. Well, in my opinion, at least in recent weeks, second to Kansas City. But they've got the best record in football. Lou Anarumo has changed this defense. Steichen's done a great job on the offense. And Jonathan Taylor is going to run away with Offensive Player of the Year if he keeps this up. And I'm sorry, I think he's in the MVP discussion. I'm not saying he is the MVP. I think that's Mahomes. But the man's probably going to get the triple crown for running backs. He's going to lead the league. He's currently leading the league in carries, yards, and touchdowns. He's on pace to lead the league in rushing by 500 yards. So he hasn't been the best back. He's been the best back by a mile. So Indianapolis, oh boy, I'm nervous for next week. They might absolutely hammer the Steelers. They might hammer the Steelers in Pittsburgh next week. Because they've beaten us the last 2 years with Gardner Minshew in 2023 and Joe Flacco last year. So yeah, I'm nervous. I'm very nervous. Before we get out of here, appreciate everybody stopping by on a Monday. We've got a game tonight between the Commanders and the Chiefs tonight. The Chiefs are a 10.5 point favorite at home. The line was at 11.5 a couple of days ago. Looks like some people are like, a little too many points. Let's take Washington to cover. So obviously Jaden Daniels is out. Marcus Mariota is in. Mariota has been solid. He wasn't very good last week, throwing the pick six against Dallas, but he played pretty well in that Raiders game. That was mostly the running game. Yeah, they got the job done for Washington. Played pretty well against the Atlanta Falcons. So he's had his moments here and there. So he can play. But the way Kansas City's, we know their offense has been rolling, and more on that in a second. The way the Chiefs defense, it's not just that they've been good, it's that they've dominated the line of scrimmage. The Detroit Lions, this was kind of like the big, oh, wow, for me, was the Detroit Lions are the bullies in the block. They are the bite kneecaps, all of that. And the Chiefs just pushed them around for 3.5 hours. I'm like, they pushed the Lions around? They dominated the line of scrimmage against Detroit? The heck's Washington going to do? Certainly the Raiders last week were dead on arrival. So I think the Kansas City Chiefs, who, by the way, have yet to score less than 30 since Xavier Worthy came back, now they got Rashee Rice and Worthy and Hollywood Brown. They've got Juju Smith-Schuster and Tyquan Thornton. And, by the way, they've also got Travis Kelce. Mahomes going to have, as bad as this Commanders defense is, Mahomes going to throw a party at Arrowhead. Travis Kelce's going to be blowing kisses to Taylor Swift in the late third quarter. This one's not going to be close. 45-20. Chiefs minus 10.5. Absolutely love it. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, as well as on X, Facebook, and on Instagram. Have a great week. We'll be there to react to the Chiefs-Commanders game. Maybe to react to, hopefully, another Golden State Warriors win against the Clippers tomorrow night. We got a game against Memphis. Hopefully, we can get that. As well as Bryce's Best 10, Carving Up the Context. Wednesday shows are always a blast. Cannot wait. Hope you tune in then. 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time. Have a great week, everybody. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. These Steelers piss me off every week. They really do. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.